This is my extremely cheap DDR machine, and by really cheap I mean 50 bucks. But unfortunately it's missing, well, everything that makes it a DDR machine. But in this episode we're not focusing on that. We're going to turn this into a StepMania cabinet apparently at some point. I don't know what I'm talking about, it's too late at night. But what I need to do now, and what we're going to focus on this episode, is actually making it stable. If we come over here, we can actually see that this cabinet is actually falling apart. And we can't have that. Not only is it falling apart, it's shifted entirely back. It's pretty much broken right here. It's coming apart here, it's coming apart over there. We're missing an entire support board that would go across here. This thing is rough, and we need to fix it. It's coming apart here. This thing is quite literally falling apart. We need to not have it fall apart, because if it falls apart, it's going to be a lot more work to put back together. So, while I don't have any time to work on it now to turn it into the StepMania cabinet, I need to just fix it physically. So let's do that. Alright, first things first is I'm going to remove this metal trim here so we can get into this edge and see what's really going on. As I think the main thing we need to fix is this side, then we can work on the other parts that are falling apart. But let's mainly focus on this part right here, and to do that we need to pull off this piece of metal. So let's do that and go from there. Okay, with that metal trim off, we can see just how far this thing has shifted. If we come up here, we can see these two wood. Are these plastic or wood on this machine? They look almost plastic. Well, these, what the hell are they called? Pegs. As you can see right here, these plastic, I think, pegs on this machine are right here, and their holes are up here and up here. So this thing needs to shift forward about a ½ inch. So we should be able to just give it a shove. Since the monitor's not in it, it should be pretty light, I think. So let's just give it a shove and see if we can get this to line up. But before we do any of that, actually, we need to pull out what's left of these staples, because they're going to all be bent up. They're never going to line up right. Let's just cut them off. I don't usually pull them fully out, because there's not really a good way, because they're kind of countersunk in. So the best thing to really do, in my opinion, is to just cut off the legs, and then you can just have a little nub that will stab into the wood, and that's just not a big deal at all. So I'm going to get a pair of wire cutters, and we're going to start cutting off all the little legs. Oh boy, that was really freaking difficult, I'm not gonna lie. But they're all cut, so we should be good to go. These two drywall nut screws are definitely not original. They're just sketchily puttied over and then sketchily painted over. So let's break through this putty and take out those two screws because, well, we obviously can't have them in there. Shit, this is actually hard putty. I might have to do this off camera because this stupid cabinet just wants to roll away from me. Yup, that's Bondo. I can smell that that is Bondo. Maybe I should wear a respirator more when I'm doing Bondo, but yeah, I can smell. That is definitely Bondo. It's also really freaking hard, like Bondo. Okay, I finally dug down to those two screws. They're really deep. You don't need to countersink your screws in that far. It's countersunk about a quarter of the way through that board. So you're losing about a quarter of your strength. So don't do that. I mean, obviously that wasn't what failed, so that doesn't matter, but yeah, you don't need to do that. Also, is this holding up the entire thing? I don't think so. That is one bent damn screw, Jesus. Holy shit, it's so bent. Okay, those screws are now out. The problem that I notice now is we have our two pegs here, we have a peg here. There's nothing in the back, and on further inspection, there's what's left of the peg right there. So we need to go make a new peg because that's going to be a problem. We can't just be missing a peg. Why did my phone just zoom in? That was weird. But to do that, let's jack this up some because, well, I want to be able to get to it. Let's see what I can find to jack this up with. Okay, so I set up this basement jack I had laying around to hold this side up so we can work on this edge. So I need to jack this up a little bit further and hopefully lift this up just a little bit above this so we can work on that peg that's missing. Also, as you can see, normally I'd be concerned about ripping this board out, but it's already ripped out. It was just kind of setting on the side here. So now we have the weight off this, so we'll be able to straighten this up and actually set it down on those staples properly after we put some glue in there. Just so this will hold down a little bit better than just, you know, sitting there holding it up. We're actually going to mount it again. So that's what it's going at. A little bit higher and we'll be able to work on this. But we're lifting too high in the front, so I think I need to move this jack. Okay, now we have it lifted up so we can get at all the pegs. And as you can see, they're just a simple... Okay. Just a simple little plastic peg. I'm going to glue that in because they really shouldn't pull out like that. But at least these ones are in pretty tight. But let's hope that one's not in tight because we got to remove that. And then we're going to replace it, not with a plastic one. I don't have any plastic ones on hand. But I do have some wooden dowels, so we'll just trim down a wooden dowel. I'm sure it'll be just as strong. But as you can see, most people wouldn't even bother replacing this. They just run a screw in like the previous person did. And that doesn't look right, doesn't work right. So let's just remove that and put in a proper, actual one of these pegs. Why do I keep forgetting the word peg? What? Now to remove it, I'm simply going to try and thread in this drywall screw. Now we simply need to pull this out, and out it comes with the peg. Perfect. Now let's go make a wooden one this same size. Unfortunately, the only size dowel I have on hand right now is slightly thicker, so we're going to have to trim it down a little bit. I also pulled out one of the ones that wasn't broken so I can get the exact length and stuff, so we should be good there. But let's turn this down a little bit to make it a little bit closer to the right size. Is this overkill? Abso-motherfucking-lutely. But am I using it? Sure. Should I be using it? Probably the fuck not. But, fuck it, it's gonna be goddamn round. Boom! I now have one wooden one and one plastic one. They look beautiful. Let's get the wood glue and start gluing. Okay, I've gone ahead and pulled out all 4 of the pegs, well, all the other 2 that were still in it, so that we can glue them in, so you don't have to worry about them just pulling out again. Hopefully. So let's get to doing that. This is the wooden one right here, so it should just pound in. Okay. Shit, I just put all 4 of those in before I made the 5th one. Damn it. Well, we're just going to use this for the diameter and guess on the length. It should be just like that much longer. Let's just go. Okay, I realized a few things. I realized I missed that one. And then I also realized after I built the 5th one, this is actually a 6th hole. So 2 more pegs have been made. So let's glue them and put them in. Okay, we now have all 6 pegs in. So now I'm going to put a coating of wood glue all along this, all along the inner seam. Then I'm going to lower this jack down, we're going to line it up, and we're going to clamp the entire thing together and let it dry. Well shit, I forgot to remove the old pegs out of the holes on this side, so I need to remove off all those broken pieces of peg. God damn it. Okay, I got all those pegs out, so now I should be able to just push this down. How am I supposed to push this down and hammer it at the same time? Damn it, I was really hoping I could get this on camera, but as you can see, we're coming together, so almost together. Okay, so we're clamped together on both sides. It's looking beautiful. As you can see, we now have the correct gap here where a board should be to help support the back. But the issue I'm having is there's too much space here in the middle. It's not fully pushed in, and there's nothing I can clamp to. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw in some quick panel nails. I would put the correct staples in, but I don't have air or any staple guns anywhere near where this cabinet is, so I can't do that. And honestly, these nails should be the same, if not stronger than those staples, so I'll just throw some in. They're going to be covered by trim, it doesn't matter, and I'm going to countersink them in anyway, so we should be good. I'm just going to send a couple of them in across here, just to give it a little bit extra pull apart force, because clearly the staples weren't enough, and hopefully these nails will be. See, that's looking perfect, and yes, I am using the proper tools to actually countersink the nails in properly. That is looking beautiful. As you can see, the glue has bubbled up on top. That means we are in nice and tight. That is what we want to see. And while we're in here, let's put the nails in this beam right here, which is a support, as we cut off all those staple legs anyway, so it's not doing anything, and it needs to be doing something. But I'm going to get shorter nails because, looking at it, we're going to have about that much from the top, and that is way too little. So let's get some shorter nails, and we'll put them on that beam. Alright, to catch up with what I just did, I put a whole bunch of wood glue in there, clamped it. Put a whole bunch of wood glue in there, clamped it. So this thing the top half should be staying together now, hopefully. I'll have to see in the front. I don't think it's coming apart in the front. I think it was only coming apart here in the rear. Now, the last thing I need to do, I also put wood glue over there and clamped it, but then I had to remove the clamp. It's already pretty tight in there, so we should be good there. We need to fix this. As you can see, that isn't mounted, and it's coming apart. So I'm going to cut off this row of staples down. You can't see anything. Okay, as the last thing here, we need to fix that. I'm going to cut off all of those staples. We're going to line this board back up, and we're going to run a whole bunch of goddamn nails, well, yeah, nails down through it, and nail that board down straight. Same with that one over there, though I don't think I'm going to be able to cut off those staples, so we're just going to hammer it down and put some more nails on top of it. And that should be good. And then for that broken board there, I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that yet. I think we're going to wait and we'll fix that later, but I don't even know if it's broken. I think it's just sagging. Might be able to fix that by just adding a support underneath it, so let's wait on that. But let's fix these 2 seams right here. Okay, I always forget how damn tiring it is cutting all those off by hand, but they're all cut off, so let's line this board up and run some nails down through. Okay, so interestingly, the top part is 2 boards thick before it goes into there. So I assume maybe possibly the top came off, as there's 2 screws there, the giant screws. I took one of them off, the other one is too tight to take off, and I still couldn't budge the top, and after I got to looking, looks like there's staples holding the 2 halves together, so I'm assuming they don't come apart. I'm assuming that's just how it was manufactured. And I'm not going to be able to separate them, so we're just going to have to use some really goddamn long nails. So that's what we're just going to do. Okay, so I used the basement jack here to put pressure down on this because it was sticking up some. So I could put those nails in, and as you can see, the glue has dripped out, so I need to wipe that off. But it is clamped down, so I'm thinking I can remove this without it popping back up. We'll see, because I need to do it on this side, and then we'll be done. Well, for tonight. And by tonight, I mean for this video. Okay, things took a, well, literal turn. As you can see, this machine is no longer straight up and down because I had to do a lot of random bullshit. Basically, to get this lined up with this, I had to press it up. But then it pressed it out of this, so then I had to pull it down. So I have it being pushed up there, pulled down here, pull it across here. It is a mess, but there are so many nails, so much wood glue. I believe when I release all these clamps, nothing should move. Ideally. Let's start removing clamps and see if it actually holds. It should. Oh, and for those of you wondering why I'm removing clamps before all the wood glue dries, it's because the wood glue shouldn't actually be what's holding it. The wood glue should just help keep it together, keep the nails from pulling out. The nails should hold it. So, that's why. Well, it mostly held. This stayed, that pulled down just a little bit, but that's gonna happen until we add a support. The issue is I fucked up. This is supposed to be flush. That is not flush. So what we have to do is put the floor jack back in here, lift this up, it'll pull these nails out. I'm going to slide this in, release that, and then hammer those nails back down into it. God damn it. It is almost 1 a.m. Okay, now that the floor jack's holding this up, I should be able to just tap this back. God, go. Okay, now we're flush. Now I can release that floor jack and hammer all those nails back in for the third time. Okay, it is now flush with the other boards, so we're good. Now, unfortunately, I realized that side is pulling out, so we're not done yet. Okay, luckily this side's actually in much better shape. We don't have to make any pegs, all of the pegs are still in here. It's just started to separate a little bit. So, all we're going to do is, I just lost flash because my battery's too low, so flashlight time. That's really garbage, but sorry about that. All we have to do is pull off that trim, throw some wood glue in there, hammer it together, and throw some staples back in, aka nails, and then pull out those 2 drywall screws like we did on the other side. So, let's do that. Let's start by pulling off this trim. And would you look at that? It wouldn't be an arcade restoration without some bubble gum stuffed in a screw head. Beautiful. Okay, the trim is off, so now let's pull this apart just a little bit to get some wood glue in there and then hammer it back together. So let's do that. Well, apparently this is actually way better together than I thought, so we're not going to try and pull it apart, because, well, I did try and it didn't come apart. So what we're going to do is just push some wood glue down it, and then we're going to nail it closed. So, let's get to wood gluing. Okay, all of those nails are in. Now let's put the ones on the inside on that board. Okay, it is done, finally. It is way too late. It is almost 1 a.m., but everything is glued together, well, for the most part. The cabinet definitely still has some work that needs done, like, hello, why is this front not square? That is something I will definitely need to be looking into. Also, it looks like we got a little bit of a gap there. The thing is far from being done, but I can move it around without the fear of it literally falling apart. And that is my main concern. I'm not going to actually work on this cabinet for quite a while, so don't expect too much, but subscribe, follow me, whatever you want to do, and you'll see the progress to this turning into a StepMania. But before I go, I want to show you one last thing. I'm sure a lot of you are wondering what I'm going to use for dance pads, since I don't have any. And I could use, you know, the cheap little PS2 fabric ones, but I actually have a better idea. And it's in my long-term storage, so let me show you. Right here in my long-term storage, well, actually right back there, is what we're going to use. Let's take a look. See, under this Yamaha tarp is actually something kind of cool. Dance pads! But not for a DDR machine. But I got 2 of them. The main problem is they use 3 buttons instead of 4. So we're going to have to completely redo the pad itself, but we have the frames, the pillars, and all that. So it'll look original as long as we do a good enough job actually doing the pad itself. But we actually have all the frames. I bought these at auction like months and months ago for like $7. And I figured at some point I'd make my own custom DDR machine and I'd need some kind of pad. So I figured, hey, $7, these will make great frames someday. And guess what? I now have a DDR machine and I'm making my custom DDR machine. So it was a good purchase, I think, because for $7, we got awesome, cool, official metal-looking frames, so we just got to do something cool for the actual pad itself, which I think I can fabricate something. This is what that game, well, what those pads are supposed to be for. An Ease 2 Dancer by Amuse World. It's basically a DDR knockoff, except you have 3 pads instead of 4, and it actually has sensors that track your arms as you wave them to make sure you're waving your arms right with the music. Wild. Nobody owns one. I don't know if these even exist anymore. There are no known instances of this game owned by our members. And, well, Arcade Museum is a pretty good track of that. So, if nobody owns one of these, there's probably some out there in existence, either in just random-ass arcades, in other countries probably, or in somebody's random shed. But I'm never going to find the cabinet for these pads, so I might as well just convert them. I mean, I'll keep all the original stuff anyway, but I might as well convert them to the 4-button and just make my DDR machine out of them. So, super cool. Definitely going to make some sick-looking DDR pads. As you can see, there is a better look. Mine have the pillars and the metal bars and everything, so they will look very much official. So, we just got to make our custom dance pad. So, hell yeah. I knew they'd come in use one day. I only bought them like 7 months ago. Might have been more by now, actually. But, if you like, please follow, like, subscribe, go follow me out on other platforms. All helps. Hopefully someday I'll hit 1,000 here on YouTube so I can actually start making money on YouTube too. Because, well, at this point, TikTok is somehow making more than YouTube. Even though it pays, like, nothing.